This story is recorded in English history and documented in the book The Witches of Warboys, written by Marion Gibson, an English historian. It happened in England in the year 1593, at a time when fear was stronger than law and belief was more dangerous than truth. In the quiet village of Warboys, strange things began inside one house. The daughters of the local squires started screaming at night. Their bodies twisted unnaturally, their mouths filled with foam. Their eyes rolled back as if something unseen was pulling them. They clawed at the walls. They bit themselves. They spoke in voices that did not sound like children. Doctors were called. They found nothing. So the family searched for another answer, and England already had one. Witchcraft. Suspicion fell on an old woman named Alice Samuel. She was poor. She was outspoken, and she had argued with the family before. That was enough. When Alice entered the house, the children collapsed instantly. They screamed that she was killing them. They claimed invisible creatures crawled on their skin whenever she came close. Alice denied everything. She begged, she prayed. She swore innocence, but belief had already chosen its truth. The book records how the children were encouraged to accuse her. Their fits became performances. Their screams became evidence. Soon, Alice, Samuel, her husband, and her daughter were arrested. They were starved, interrogated, broken. Under unbearable pressure, Alice confessed. Not because she was guilty, but because she was human. She described spirits she had never seen. She repeated stories others suggested. And England listened. In 1593, Alice Samuel, her husband, and her daughter were hanged. Publicly, silently. But the story did not end there. After the executions, something terrifying happened. The children's fits did not stop. They continued screaming, convulsing, suffering. The book documents this detail carefully. If the witches were dead, why did the torment continue? Years later, doubts began to surface. Historians questioned the confessions. Doctors reviewed the symptoms, and something horrifying became clear. There was no witch. There never was. Fear had created one. Marion Gibson's book does not describe ghosts. It describes something far worse. How belief can kill, how children's lies can become law, how an entire village can murder innocents and sleep at night. But locals recorded one final detail. After the executions, people avoided the place where Alice Samuel died. They claimed the air felt heavy. Animals refused to pass. And some said they heard a woman whispering prayers after sunset, not curses. Prayers. To this day, Warboys is remembered not for magic, but for how easily humans can become monsters when fear is given permission. And that is why this story is true horror. Because no demon appeared. No spirit attacked. Only people did. And history wrote it down. Story number 2. Book name: The Yellow Wallpaper. Author: Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Reference: first published in 1892, documented in American literature as a semi-autobiographical true psychological account by the author herself. What you are about to hear is not a ghost story. It was written by a woman who lived it. Charlotte Perkins Gilman did not write The Yellow Wallpaper to scare people. She wrote it as a warning. In the late 19th century, Charlotte suffered from severe depression after childbirth. Doctors did not call it postpartum depression back then. Her physician, a respected man of science, prescribed what was known as the rest cure. No writing, no thinking, no work, no imagination. Just silence. Charlotte followed the treatment, and she nearly lost her mind. The book records what happened when a woman was locked away for her own good. The story takes place inside a rented colonial mansion. The narrator is brought there by her husband, who is also her doctor. He believes he knows what is best for her. She's placed in a room at the top of the house. The windows are barred. The bed is nailed to the floor. And the wallpaper is wrong. It is yellow, sickly, rotting. She stares at it every day because there is nothing else to do. At first, she hates it. Then she studies it. Then she notices movement. The patterns shift when the light changes. Shapes crawl behind the surface. At night, the wallpaper seems alive. She begins to believe there is a woman trapped inside it. A woman who shakes the pattern, trying to escape. The longer she is confined, the clearer the figure becomes. The narrator realizes something horrifying. The woman in the wall is not haunting the room. She is imprisoned there. And slowly, the narrator understands why. Her husband dismisses her fears. He laughs. He tells her she is imagining things. But the book reveals the truth between the lines. The real horror is not the wallpaper. It is the isolation, the forced silence, the complete loss of control over one's own mind. Charlotte later admitted that she herself began hallucinating under the rest cure. She saw shapes. She felt watched. She felt herself splitting into pieces. The woman in the wallpaper was not a ghost. She was a reflection. As the story reaches its end, the narrator locks herself in the room. She tears the wallpaper from the walls with her bare hands. She crawls in circles around the room. When her husband breaks in and sees her, he faints, and she steps over him. Free. Charlotte Perkins Gilman later stated publicly that the yellow wallpaper was written to stop doctors from prescribing the rest cure. She said it nearly killed her. This is why the story still disturbs readers today, because nothing supernatural happens. No monster appears. No spirit attacks, just a woman slowly disappearing, while everyone around her believes she is being cured. And that is true horror. Because it really happened, and it was written down by the woman who survived it. Story number 3. Book name, The Radium Girls. This story is published in 2016, based on court records, medical files, death certificates, newspapers, and first-hand testimonies of the victims. What you're about to hear is not a ghost story. No haunted house, no demon, no curse. Getting killed slowly, painfully, and silently. This story took place in the early 1900s in America, during a time when science was trusted blindly and danger wore the face of progress. Radium was considered a miracle. Doctors prescribed it. Companies sold it. People believed it could cure anything. And young women were hired to work with it. They were called the Radium Girls. Their jobs seemed harmless, even elegant. They painted glow-in-the-dark numbers on watch dials so soldiers could read time at night. The paint shimmered like starlight. The women were taught a technique called lip dip paint. They shaped the brush with their lips, dipped it into radium paint, painted again. Hundreds of times a day. The company told them it was safe. In fact, they said it was healthy. Some women even painted their nails and teeth to glow at parties. They laughed until their bodies began to rot. The first symptom was toothache. Teeth fell out. Gums began bleeding uncontrollably. One woman's jaw came loose in her doctor's hand, literally detached. Bone tissue disintegrated. Faces collapsed inward. Doctors were confused. The company was not. Internal documents later revealed they knew radium was deadly, but the women were replaceable. The book records how one girl, Mulimachia, died, screaming as her organs failed. Her body was radioactive even after death. Her bones glowed in the dark. As more women fell ill, the company blamed syphilis. They destroyed records. They bribed doctors. They delayed lawsuits until the women were too weak to testify. Some died before reaching the courtroom. Kate Moore's book documents one of the most chilling details. When graves were later examined, the bodies were still radioactive. Decades later, the poison did not fade. The women fought back. They sued while dying. They testified with broken jaws. Some could not stand. They won, but too late for most. This case changed labor laws forever. But the horror was already complete. No ghost did this. No monster attacked. Just lies. Just greed. Just human cruelty hidden behind white lab coats and polite smiles. And that is why this story is terrifying, because it proves something far worse than the supernatural, that the deadliest horrors are often legal, approved, and profitable, and they glow beautifully while they kill you. Story number 4. Book name: The Five. The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper. This story is written by Holly Rubin, and this story published in 2019, based on Victorian records, police files, court documents, newspapers, census data, and historical archives. What you are about to hear is not the story you think you know. This is not the story of a killer. It is the story of 5 women whose lives ended so brutally that history forgot who they really were. In Victorian London, the East End was a place people avoided after sunset. Narrow streets, gas lamps flickering in the fog, the smell of sewage and decay hanging in the air. This was what, and in 1888, something hunted there. But the book written by Holly Rubin does not focus on the monster. It focuses on the victims. Women history reduced to shadows. Marion Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, Mary Jane Kelly. They were not born victims. They were daughters, wives, mothers. The book documents how poverty slowly crushed them. Alcohol was not weakness. It was escape. Sleeping on the streets was not choice. It was survival. On the nights they died, each woman believed she might see another morning. Marion Nichols was last seen walking slowly, drunk, but smiling. She told a friend she had earned money for a bed. She never reached it. Her throat was cut so deeply, her head was nearly severed. Annie Chapman was found with her abdomen opened, organs removed with surgical precision. The street was quiet. No one heard her scream. Elizabeth Stride's murder was interrupted. Her body showed less mutilation. Some believe she surprised the killer. Catherine Eddowes was killed less than an hour later. Her face was destroyed. Her kidney removed. Her body left like a message. And then there was Mary Jane Kelly. The book describes her death as something even seasoned police officers could not forget. She was murdered indoors. Behind closed doors, her body was not just killed, it was said. Her face was unrecognizable. Her organs were spread around the room. Her heart was missing. Police reports from the time describe officers vomiting at the scene. This was not rage. This was method. The book carefully dismantles the myths. These women were not all prostitutes. They were not careless. They were not asking for death. They were trapped in a system that abandoned them. Jack the Ripper was never caught, but the book leaves the reader with something more disturbing, that the city itself helped kill them. By ignoring poverty, by blaming victims, by turning suffering into spectacle. For over a century, people obsessed over the killer's identity. Meanwhile, the women were reduced to footnotes. Holly Rubin stored their names, their lives, their humanity. And when you read their stories, something unsettling becomes clear. The true horror was not just the knife in the dark. It was how easy it was for the world to look away. Because monsters don't always hide in shadows. Sometimes they walk freely, while everyone is too busy watching the blood.